Yeah, so one of the things that has happened over the last year is I did a tour and went all over, not all over the world, but to a lot of places around the world, and did time banking workshops and meetings and participated in conferences. I used to be very active in Time Banks USA, and now I still work with Time Banks USA, but I'm not officially a part of it. And one of the things that has been an outstanding need is for us to really help build each other's skills and learn from each other. And we generally have had a national conference every 2 years. We hosted a couple of them, some of you, that's how I met you, in 2007 and 2009. And there wasn't capacity to have a national conference over the last year, but I was helping facilitate this process where people around the world, mostly around this country, but in other countries too, who are doing similar work, not just time banking, but other cooperative kind of work or complementary currency kind of work, where we're coming together to really work on applying all these same tools and principles to ourselves so we can really support each other more effectively, more sustainably, distribute resources between and among us more effectively. And that process is called Knit a Network, and it actually factors into the presentation today, so I'll be bringing it up a couple times. But in the Knit a Network group, we had a work group on training and peer support, and so we decided to make my tour like a rolling conference. So what we did was just put out the call to anybody who's doing similar stuff. Most of it went out through Time Banks using the Time Banks USA software, some other currency software, and just like through currency and cooperative lists and stuff. So anyone could choose to host a gathering, and they could do it any size and any style. And you'll see there was a lot of variety. So some of the gatherings were like a couple of people meeting for lunch and brainstorming. In Boise, Idaho, I met with the new coordinator of the Time Bank, and it was just 3 people having lunch. And then in The Hague in the Netherlands, it was a 300-person, massive, hugely expensive conference, complementary currencies conference. That was happening anyhow. This one didn't happen because of my tour, in case I gave the wrong impression there. On the tour, I ended up calculating it at the end, and so I just counted the people I directly interacted with. So at the big conference, I didn't count all 300 people. I counted the people who came to our open space and came to our presentation and came to the panel that I was on and stuff. But all told, there were 68 Time Bank related events with 1,437 participants. So that was a big conference, which was really exciting to me, and yeah, just nice to see. And also every single situation, there was so much to learn from. So the tour started in May, and right before we started the tour, we had been talking about how to pull together the different threads, and we had come to an idea that we would create a cooperative structure. So I operate better with like some metaphors. So I consider the cooperative sort of like the plot in which you are growing things or whatever. So it's the space, it's the group and the governance, the group that's choosing to pool resources and that's choosing to apply them toward good work and projects. And then they manage these 3 pieces, which are time, price-based mutual credit, and then these savings pools. And we just went into this briefly earlier, and this is something that we can go into and clarify for people who come in newly. But they manage these and they govern them like a commons. So one of the things we also learned from Bernard Lietaer when he was here was about principles of governing a commons. A woman named Elinor Ostrom, who won the Nobel Peace Prize several years ago, she sort of pioneered that and has some excellent principles about how you govern something together that you collectively own. So the cooperative would manage these pieces in service of doing good work and being supported by your community. So then there'd be other pieces connected to help people do that effectively. So some of those processes of like the game that I showed you earlier, the board game about how it's a game that teaches you how to collaborate on a project, and some of the processes of technical assistance and providing templates for agreements, the types of agreements that people would make to make this effective. And we started calling them mutual aid networks. for several reasons. One is there's a lot of conversation about mutual aid. Insurance actually started off as a very, as mutual aid societies. If you've ever been to New Orleans, for example, you can go to this great backstreet cultural museum and learn about mutual aid societies, which were people pooling their money for their own insurance. So if someone got hurt or sick, they could access that pool of money. And then it got perverted into the profit-driven insurance model that we have today. So much of one of the problems that we respond to in time making is that it is very transactional. In order to get a time bank hour, someone has to pay you a time bank hour. And we want to start to recognize and catalyze and reward rebuilding the commons. So there shouldn't have to be someone to pay you if you are creating new value in a given community. So one of the ways that we express this in our time bank is when we have a project, we make an account in our time bank that's the project, and the project pays out the hours for the work that needs to be done to make that project happen. To me, that's a very clean and very good way for these to come into existence, because you're generating something. But that's an issue we want to tackle sort of at a more systemic level too, is really how do we recognize and value contributions to the commons? And so that's a big piece of it, and one of the reasons that I wanted to get away from sort of banking language and use it sometimes, but not have that be the end all and be all. And mutual aid, like the fact that we're going to come together and support each other, whether it's transactional or whether it's collective action or whatever we're doing, I think really expresses it. And then there's this one little piece that I really like and not everyone does, but since this is all about focusing on good work and creating an opportunity for people to do the work that they want to do, I would like to help people create their dream jobs working for the man. I think that we can have a little bit of cultural communication. So we had decided on mutual aid network as a term, a working term that we're using. And when I was talking with Mark about how I should go about collecting contact information from people while I was on my trip, we thought we'd just try a rough draft of a mutual aid network. And essentially this is a rough draft. Mark's rebuilding it in a different platform. But what it is really is a borderless time bank. So people can join, and you see Tony up here. He says what he can offer locally, what he can offer anywhere, and then we also can post projects and we can ask people to contribute work to projects, and then we can exchange time. But this is like that's the rough draft, and then the next phase will be out sometime in the.
It's very much work in progress.
Yeah. And everything is and always will be. And that's one of the issues that we deal with is a lot of this stuff people tend to associate really with the tools we're using. Like people are always like, oh, the software, like whole time banks will be like, oh, our software isn't good enough, so we're not going to do anything except focus on software. But that's always a disappointment. Good software can really help, so don't get me wrong. But the real thing that makes time banks work are people, communication, bringing people together. There are time banks that use much slicker software than what we use, but it almost 100%, or I don't know, I have to say 100% in my experience interacting with a lot of time banks. The ones that do well are the ones that bring people together face to face for events and projects and get people getting to know each other, and there's no substitute for it. And software can really help. So here's Morris giving the report. We started off with a regional gathering in Wisconsin. We did it on super short notice on a shoestring, partly because we wanted to fill our obligations for a grant we were getting. But part of it is we wanted to practice what we're preaching, and like part of the point of doing this rolling conference is to sort of share our resources as we go and just try to make it easier and easier for people to host gatherings like this. And also I'm very big on experiential learning, and so I thought it'd be really helpful for all these time banks to host something. And it just gives them a reason to get more people in the room than they might otherwise and shake things up a little bit. And it really did have that impact. So we focused on health and wellness, and Sayana and I did a presentation about the Allied Community Co-op, and we end up talking about that a lot because for me it's the project that we have that most clearly exemplifies trying to put this theory into practice about how we really make something go. So I have high hopes and expectations for it, and even just the fact that we've mapped it out so far is a value to the world, that I think that we can get a lot done there. Then we went to Louisville, Kentucky, and oh, I really love this though, because as you saw earlier, our game is called the Build a Better World game, and then it was really wonderful because we went out for Chinese food on the last day there, and the founder of the Louisville Time Bank got that fortune. And then the other thing is when Bernard Lietaer was here, we went out for Chinese food, and his fortune said, "You don't need to worry about money. The best things in life are free." So I feel like we have good fortune. Louisville is particularly interesting because they are taking on a health and wellness focus in some ways, and they're an interesting situation because they have very new, part of the reason we went there is we were invited by a very sort of high-level amalgamation of healthcare organizations to come and talk with them about time banking. It was me and Kathy Perlow, who runs a hospital-based time bank. So we got to meet, I don't know if you guys know Robin Young or Youngson from New Zealand. He's a great physician, and they had these big healthcare-oriented roundtables, and it was fascinating. And they have a very new time bank, and so that was part of what Kathy and I were there to do, is help navigate that space where taking on this, like the time bank didn't have a governance structure yet when we got there. They had no way to make the decision about if they were going to go to this high-level partnership, and we felt there was a big, and they felt there was a big danger of them really getting dragged around by that partnership. So that was something we went to help them navigate. They have since created their governance process. They've adopted a really interesting model of dynamic governance. Part of how they're going to pay me back for spending 5 days of my life there without being paid is that they're going to help take that forward and teach other people what they've learned about dynamic governance. Next piece, I went to Europe. So Mark and I presented at the International Complementary Currencies Conference in The Hague, which is a great excuse to get over there, and then I set up some other stops. So the very first place I went is this great festival in the UK, and the reason I included this, I'm not going to talk about every stop, don't worry. The reason I included this one is I met a woman there who, she came to my presentation, and then she ended up showing up at the meeting we had in Bristol a few days later. And she's doing this, and it turns out she's doing her PhD about time banking and related things. So she's going to be coming here to work with us in the next couple of months. And that's why I wanted to include that. I included Bristol because they didn't have any time bank. I just went and met with them because I have a friend who lives there who is interested. But now one of them, there's this BMW's in the car manufacturer, Tate, I think it's an art museum. Something that he's going to start a time bank as a project within this thought leader context. So that was cool. These folks are in Paris. This woman, Civil, with the longer hair up there, is really wonderful, and she also is doing a lot of stuff with games as learning tools. This is a mutual credit game that we played. We had the opportunity to go and do a workshop at a Paris business school. One day of the year they put towards social responsibility. So we went for Social Responsibility Day and did some stuff about mutual credit. And I was excited there because the young woman in her report out said she wants to start that in her community. And here we are playing the Build a Better World game with these people in Paris. So that's part of what I'm interested in doing, is seeing all the different cultural contexts. And we presented at The Hague. Here's Mark. Here's us right before our presentation. And I just like to show this because this is one of the ways I was contextualizing stuff. So Mark started with the theory about the ecosystem stuff and the applications of these different things. And then my part, I started with this picture of everyone gathered at the Capitol. The reason I did is because when I was at the Capitol with 200,000 other people at the Capitol, and it was so exciting and it seemed like everything was possible, I felt like the ask that I was hearing was, we want state and manufacturing jobs 40 hours a week with good benefits. And I was just like, we had 200,000 people at the Capitol in the year 2000, well, I guess it was 2011 at that time, and this is the best we can dream up. And going back to those questions earlier, like what would you do to improve your community if you could, and then what would you do if money were no object, and is money an object? As like, you know, if with this many people, if money were no object, we can afford to dream better. So that was part of what we talked about, is exercising our dreaming muscles. And the one thing that I said that got cheers was, I said, no one should have to do 40 hours of anything unless they really want to. Then Doers Days was the day for practitioners, and that's our open space session up there where we delved into the mutual aid network. I did forget to mention, so we presented our paper, and then also I was on a panel about time banking, and I didn't show a picture of that. And then another thing that was very cool during the open space day, Matthew, who programmed our software, had invited a couple game designers, like professional game designers, so they could come and do a session with me and Sybil and help us improve our games. And so our game went from the version that you saw earlier, so this is the new version. They just had us change it into a spiral. And this game, and this reflects what I think about time banking. I think time banking is an especially effective experiential learning tool about this kind of stuff, because it breaks your economy down into people, assets, and needs, and how they flow. And so it really helps start to break apart a little bit of the sort of money sickness that we tend to carry around with us. Or one of the reasons I want to be really active in the complementary currency world is people get really hung up on currency mechanics and velocity and all these different things. And not that it's not informative, and not that it can't be important. It can be important, but people really tend to lose sight of what the point is. And in my view, like really doing currency for the sake of how your currency is flowing and how many exchanges are happening. I don't think people should do exchanges if they don't need to exchange something. But I think it's just a different, in my view, it's a different form of capitalism, like looking at the tool as the end in itself instead of the means to an end. So that was really what part of what I'm trying to accomplish in that world, is to just like refocus on what's the point. And that's the drawing that we made for that, where I did the cooperative as an umbrella. But just hammering out, it was very helpful to have all these people who are really immersed in currencies. One of the people up there runs Bay Bucks in San Francisco, and there's different people. There's someone from Paco Palmas in Brazil. So it's really good to have people who've been very immersed in this stuff, like just hammering through it with us. So then, after the Europe leg of the trip, I went out to the West Coast and up the coast and back. So there are a lot of stops I'm not touching on. RSF Social Finance and Sustainable Economies Law Center are two groups that I really wanted to go through the mechanics of this stuff with. So RSF Social Finance, they actually have helped fund us in the past, and they manage money, and they manage huge amounts of money. RSS stands for Rudolf Steiner Foundation, so it was originally started as a Steiner thing and started among Waldorf schools, and then ended up growing into a huge sort of innovative social financing group. They manage money in all the ways that we're talking about wanting to manage these pools of money. So they do saving and lending, they do creative lending, they do granting and all kinds of investment money pooling stuff. And really, so this picture up here, there's Greg Bloom. Some of you knew him from when he came and worked with us last year. So he traveled with me for a bit there and helped out. And then two people from RSF Social Finance, and I can't remember everyone's name, so I won't name any of them, and two people from Sustainable Economies Law Center. And Sustainable Economies Law Center is like the premier organization that's working on law in regards to complementary currencies. And this realm is pretty new, and as you learn more about it, you'll see there's a lot of legal and financial gray area, like financial in terms of tax implications, and that's something that we really are working to work through. It's not like anyone is just like looking to, I mean, in some ways it's important to kind of go under the radar until you have something worth going for better policies about. And that's, again, I mentioned it earlier, that's part of our goal with connecting these different pieces, to have cleaner avenues for those things to happen in the ways they're supposed to happen legally and tax-wise. And then this is a drawing we did at that. just, getting into each time this comes up, and I'm just including this so you can see each time it comes up, it just has more detail. So we went even more into the possible inputs into the savings pool and more into the possible outputs. So inputs, we have savings, we have donors who just donate money, we have investors who are looking for a low return on their investments, never a high return. We have fundraising that we would do, like crowdfunding. Buying time, I'm very interested in creating a situation where people who have, if you're working full-time and you're getting a salary, you can put some of your, like a percentage of your salary in there. So I'm gonna just throw out a number. So say I'm working full-time and I earn $40,000 a year. And I say, well, I could do 10% of my time, I could get time bank hours instead of money. I would put 10% of my money into that pool as a gift. And then, for that amount of my work time, I would take time bank hours from the group. So you're not like paying for time, but it's a way that people can invest their money. So what I'm looking for, again, it's about integrating these things. What I'm looking for is ways that people can earn time bank hours for what they're doing already with most of your time. So a lot of people are too busy that they would like to participate in that way. And then you can help build up the monetary resources for people who might not have as much access to that, but who might be able to earn more time, and then you can take time for that. But part of the point is right now, if I were to say, I want to get time bank hours at my job, I would have a big mess and I wouldn't be able to do it because your employer wouldn't be legally allowed to do that because of labor laws. Your employer would have to be really on board with it in order to even look into that. And so it's just another way. So again, I'm just looking to integrate different types of work and different types of compensation so people can have enough variety to meet their variety of needs and do a variety of work. But anyhow, yeah. So those ones will be things to hammer out later. And then outputs would be loans, paying people for the work that they're doing on a project, grants to people or to projects, risk pooling, so you could choose to have your pool of money operate like a mutual aid society. So we'll all save $100 a year, and if someone breaks their arm under particular terms, we'll go ahead and pay whatever, we'll give them that money or give them a no interest loan for whatever isn't covered by their insurance deductible or things like that. So that's an example of how you use it for risk pooling. And also to have money pooled for administration, the tools that you're using. And that's another issue for us in the time bank, because it's always hard to get money for administration. Another highlight that I saw traveling around is there are a lot of regional umbrella groups springing up to support their local time banks. So here we have time banks in Puget Sound up in Seattle, and there's Edgar Kahn joining us by Skype. That was one of our more formal gatherings. Up in the left-hand corner, we have the California Federation of Time Banks in LA. Up top, we have in the top and middle there, that's in Kent, Ohio, and they're forming the Crooked River Alliance of Time Banks. Up in the top right I got to go to the launch of the new Pontiac Sun Time Bank, and that's being launched by Kim Hodge up there on the left, who runs the Michigan Alliance of Time Banks. And this bottom one is actually this middle and bottom on the right-hand side are both Mid-Atlantic time banks. So their thing was pretty cool because they did sort of a progressive gathering. So in New York, we did one big training for people who were already experienced in running time banks. So it was sort of a higher level in-depth training. And then the next day in Media, Pennsylvania, we did a training for beginning time banks. So, but one of the things that is clear is that we need help supporting each other and how we support each other. And so one of the results of this trip is we're going to aim to do a leadership retreat in the summer. And actually I have some things to invite you guys to, because there will also be an international conference in Rhode Island in the summer. So we'll do a leadership retreat and then that conference. Other connections are a lot of health and social justice projects. So I pointed out earlier, there's Paul Glover up in the middle left, and he is the founder of Ithaca Hours, and he's developing a wellness cooperative that is a very beautiful vision. So we went to meet with him about what's going on. And he has all the pieces he needs except for $500,000 to buy the land, so whoever wants to step up. The guy on the right there is Scott Morris, and he traveled with me for a little bit. I met him in The Hague, and we had emailed before because he actually, in his local work, has come to almost identical conclusions that we have. And I found people in different places around the world who also have, where they have decided to turn into a cooperative, they've decided to add in the savings pool piece and connect. So to me, that says something positive, is that so many different people in different places came to the same conclusion. So that's how we first started talking. He's right now acting as a consultant to Ithaca, New York, who is doing the Ithaca Hours project, and they are in a similar process to us of looking at how they integrate into a more comprehensive thing. And he's starting, there's a group that actually paid for my travel to the Netherlands. They're called Coin, Q-O-I-N, based in Amsterdam. He's starting the US branch of that. So one of the things that they will be doing is bringing their software here, which deals with all the different pieces that we want to do. And we can evaluate if that works for us or not. I had 6 events in 2 days in Massachusetts between, around Boston and UMass, Dartmouth. It was insane. Yeah, it was crazy. But I was on a panel doing this divest from fossil fuels thing, and author Chuck Collins was the main speaker there. Did something at Veterans on the Rise in Washington, D.C. And then here's Kathy Perlow. She's the originator of the Neighbor to Neighbor care team. So I was able to spend 2 days with her, just really learning about how she's setting up her Neighbor to Neighbor care teams and getting things shared online. Some good things there. And then the other thing that came up, that has come up a number of times, is people are interested in developing a time where we can travel and stay with other people. And I'm showing you the French people up here. This is Paris, us playing a game at this workshop. Because in France and some of the Belgian systems, they have a very great model. And I actually just reached out to them, and they're willing to partner with us so we can learn from them or collaborate with them and just jump on to what they're doing. But the first time we went to France to present a couple of years ago, we got put up with someone who's part of this. So what happens, their equivalent of time banks are called cells, S-E-L, and if they have rules, so if you're a member of your local group for a certain amount of time, then you can travel and you can spend 1 time credit per night to stay with people who are in the system. So that was one of the things we did, is we found people in Chicago who want to start it. Tampa Bay, Florida, I have up there because there's a woman insisting that people come and use her house. LA, I was hosted in the lap of luxury, and someone made beautiful meals and delivered them every day through the time bank. And then Paris, and that's one of the things we're doing in this knit a network process now. That's the process of connecting with people around the world to really develop these things further. Is we do have a work group to flesh that out. So if people are interested, you are more than welcome to help make that happen. In between tour stops, we did a deep dive discussion about how these things connect. And one of the things we did was strengths and limitations of each of our systems. And so Madison Hours, local currency, the time bank, and then the community resource pool or the savings pool. And just realized that the strengths of some make up for the limitations of others. And we would just really think with the 3 types of tools at our disposal, we can actually fill in a lot of the gaps. Giftable was a gift economy festival in Istanbul, Turkey. And you probably can't tell, but this guy here, second from the right, he was the same guy in that picture in Walk Out, Walk On. He's from that Brazil project that did the cultural center. And this was amazing. The woman right next to him is Deborah Fries, the one who facilitated that stuff or helped facilitate all that. A bunch of these people are from Berkana Network, so they're doing those translocal projects. And Deborah Fries happens to live right with and be very good friends with all those people who hosted those 6 events in Massachusetts. So she's gonna jump in and help us out in these processes. Did a crowdfunding workshop with Ian McKenzie so we can be better positioned to raise money for all this stuff. And lest I forget, Edgar Kahn, the founder of Time Banking, and his wife, Chris Gray, were helping out and participating in a lot of the stuff on the East Coast, hosted the Veterans on the Rise gathering. And then ended the tour where it all began, which is with this woman in the middle, Renee Marver, and she started the first modern time bank in this country around 1981. And she gave us a lot of the materials that they use, so we're going through it now. Yeah, and as I said, it totaled to 68 gatherings, 1,437 people total. And then after I got back, we held our first design team meeting to design mutual aid networks. And then we ended up dividing into 4 main subgroups, and you are welcome to participate in any of them. Social, which is about membership, communication, budgeting tools, sort of the processes to support people and make agreements. Legal, so all the aspects of understanding how parts can be nonprofit and parts can be for-profit and how we have to incorporate to be on the up and up. Financial, just tackling these money issues that have come up with the community-supported resources, and technical, software, system design, and things like that. So, which work group would you like to do? Now, that's where we are now. So what we are looking to do is we have a lot of raw materials. We have a lot of projects in the Dane County Time Bank. What we've talked about as a staff this year is really taking a look at North and East Madison and Dane County, because we have our new project in Sun Prairie and surrounding areas with neighbor-to-neighbor care teams. We started in the north side of Madison and East Madison, so we have a lot of members there. The feed kitchen, that's a code kitchen that's designed to really provide accessible ways that people can do economic development work and develop their own skills and have more food available, is another potential partner on the north and east side. And we have our medical transportation and wellness project. And in Allied, we have the wellness project. We have Maxine's Time Bank store where you can get stuff for your time bank hours. And we have the co-op with all the partners who've agreed to be part of the co-op and who are looking for ways, especially to develop employment skills, employment opportunities, and also reduce the need for full-time employment by developing other kinds of community supports. And then we have this Power Time project coming up. And so what we're looking to do now is like take all this and make soup. So we have the projects, we have the tools at our disposal. So the resource pooling and allocation tools. There's one piece, well actually, I'm going to come back to this and give you guys a chance to have some clarifying conversations. We have social tools, training and peer support, the comprehensive kind of budgeting we want to do to help people see their way clear to meeting their needs with resources besides money, in addition to money. Dream job creation, about helping people to create the kind of work that they want to do. So all this stuff, social tools. And then we are looking to create an infrastructure where you can have a local mutual aid network. I can have one for my block where we choose to become members and pool our resources in support of growing food on all the available surfaces and distributing it in our block. We could have it at the level of a neighborhood like the Allied Energy Project, where we have a mutual aid network in support of doing good work, whether it's focused on energy exclusively or whether it's a broader focus. It's up to the people doing it. We can have a food shed size one. So we have the local mutual aid networks and then a global one where those are all behaving as a cooperative and combining and sharing resources. So those are the tools at our disposal, and the question is, what do we do with those raw materials? So really most of the rest of the time, we're gonna brainstorm, we're gonna get into some of your questions that you have and share ideas about what we do with what we have. Let me see if there's anything else. And then there are a couple questions to ask, because we don't need to add things just to add things. One question, where is time banking sufficient? Because in some cases we might not need to do anything different. Where would additional tools be helpful? Which ones and why? And then if we don't have what we need, where can we find it? And what next? Let's go into this. Are people clear on the dollar mutual credit? Works like a time bank but has a price on it. You pay the taxes on it. Businesses can exchange it. Another place this might come in handy. Sometimes people don't want to put their professional services into the time bank or are very limited with how much they can. So say I'm a physical therapist. For example, I might have licensing issues that make it hard for me to put that into time bank. I might be relying on it for my income, or maybe I can do like an hour a month for a time bank, but I can't do any more than that. Perhaps that's a place for dollar-based mutual credit, because it would operate more like dollars and you'd be able to spend it in the businesses that you would have spent your money at. So that is another function that could fill.
Yay! Hi everyone! If you liked that video, please subscribe to get more updates about time banks and local economies.